but it's quite difficult to use, and that is that the value of a firm is not worth more than all future discounted dividends. So if you discount all future dividends, that's the same thing as the present value. Yeah.
You can also try to calculate the book value.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not similar to the share price.
Yeah, it is. I think that, of course, you can use the book value and stuff like that, but it's very similar to multiples and trying to value the firm as an Great. So can someone explain how you use multiples and what did the analysis to compare Facebook? So what you basically do with using and comparing multiples with other companies?
Yeah, so they compare Facebook with similar companies,
Yeah.
which are also like quite data driven.
Yeah.
So one was like Apple and Google and LinkedIn as a social network.
Yeah.
And there they calculate, for example, the revenue per share and profit per share.
Yeah.
And and based on the IPO price of their they base like what would be a like fair value person to closely compare.
But very good. I think that it's not, or usually not the revenue, but it's usually the earnings. So usually you could compare, like, instead of earnings, you could use assets or something like that. But you can use different multiples. But the most common way is to compare the share price with the earnings. And it can be forward-looking earnings, which is in the case, or it can be like trading price per earnings, which is basically this.
But this approach is very difficult if the company is not yet profitable.
Yeah.
Because there are also many IPOs in the recent years.
We'll come back to that. So, what did I get by comparing with Apple and Google? So, what did the number say by comparing price per earnings with Google and Apple? Yeah.
They have much higher price per earnings than Google and Apple.
Yeah. So Facebook's multiple was much higher than Facebook and Google. I think Apple had like a multiple of 10, and perhaps Google had 11. And if they would introduce Facebook for $38, and if the earnings would be 40 cents, 2013, I think that the price per earning would be like 98 or something like that. If I'm not, I think it was 98 or something. So it basically said that, it seems that Facebook is much higher value than both Apple and Google. Did I compare with someone else?
LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. And what did that say by comparing with LinkedIn?
The trading increase was much higher.
Yeah.
660.
Yeah, exactly. So they compare with LinkedIn, which at that time was perhaps most similar to Facebook because it was also about social media, but LinkedIn was more about professionals. Facebook was more active in connection with friends and family. And LinkedIn had, as you said, 666. And what it basically says is that if you take the price per earnings, I mean, it takes 10 or 11 years to actually motivate that price. And LinkedIn is 666 years. But what it also says is that, okay, I think there's one downside with using this and comparing different companies is that it's heavily dependent on the growth rate of the firms. Because we can compare more stable companies. I mean, more stable companies with more tech firms. I mean, if you are growing a lot, you usually have higher price per earnings than more stable companies that are not growing that much in terms of profit and so on. So, do you think that this type of method is or was valuable in order to understand the value of Facebook? Sort of.
Up to a certain limit, yes.
Yeah,
The nature of Facebook is different a little bit.
Yeah,
Because in the beginning, most of the richest people around the world
yeah,
came to Facebook.
yeah,
They make fast growth,
yeah,
which will affect the future
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
stock price.
yeah. That's perfect. So yeah, sort of. I mean, I think perhaps the situation with Facebook in this case is, as you are saying, that okay, we try to create a new market basically, and how do you actually evaluate that, and how do you evaluate the companies that you are trying to create a new market space that we don't know so much about, and what will happen with the other people joining Facebook that are not the richest people in the world, basically. How will we make a value on that? The next coming like 900 million users. But it gives you a pretty rough understanding, at least, I mean, by comparing with the other firms, and try to sort out, okay, is this valuable or not? But still, I mean, I think one downside as well is that you are only looking at 1 year. Okay? You are only comparing numbers for 1 year. But usually, if you take the multiples, applying them on very stable companies, it makes great sense to actually use multiples. And usually, when we make a valuation of the stock market, to understand is the stock market highly priced or is it very cheap at the moment. They usually use price per earnings, like the average price of earnings of all the companies on the stock market. Usually around like 14, might be 18, and then people sort of think, well, perhaps I would sell off my shares now because it's very expensive. So this is what Facebook did themselves, and what the analysis, one of the methods that analysis used to actually put the value on this. So the other method to make evaluation of the companies by using discounted cash flows, as you said. So can someone explain how we use discounted cash flows? How many of you have taken courses in finance? Okay, quite many. So you know this. It's too easy. So can someone of you explain how you use discounted cash flow? Yeah.
Yeah, so you basically estimate or have a prognosis of the future profits you earn like in the next 5 or in this case 8 years.
Yeah.
And then you subtract the cost of capital in this case.
Yeah, so now you're calculating the cash flow, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a discounted capital, and that you have to base by the like years. Remember?
Yeah. So you're saying that the value of the firm, and you said profits, but yeah, it's cash flow. So it's free cash flow, and it's divided by
EACC, like or cost of capital.
yeah, okay, cost of capital. So This is the, so exactly. So the value is equal with the sum of future free cash flow divided by divided by 1 plus the discount rate. Okay, and you said that you can use the weighted average cost of capital to calculate that, and that's correct, and that's what they are doing in the book. Another way is to use a different method, and I think they use that in the case actually. So you're not calculating the weighted average cost of capital, you are using what? I think you have taken courses in finance as well, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what can you use instead of weighted average cost of capital? Okay, so you can use 2 different methods to calculate the cost of capital. The one is weighted average cost of capital, and then you get a discount rate based on an average of using or calculating the discount rate of the equity and the debt, therefore weighted average cost. And then you can use something called CAPM, Capital Asset Pricing Management, and that's based on the discount rate only on the firm's equity. You're not caring about the debt of so these are the 2 methods, and I think the KSR and Facebook are using CRPM, Book are using weighted average cost. To use the CRPM is much easier because you don't need to care about the debt. So it's the sum, and as you said before, I think they calculated the free cash flow for 8 years, and then what you do, because this is a sum, so you can calculate for 100 a year if you want, but it's very tricky to estimate the future cash flow 100 a year from now. So what you do then? So you calculate a horizon of terminal value. Okay? So you can calculate the free cash flow for 8 years. You can calculate it for 5 years. Then you use a formula for calculating the terminal value. And that is based on the growth of future cash flows. So you get the sum of the free cash flow for 5 years, and then you calculate the rest of the value of the future cash flow. Let's see if I missed something here. So the discount rate, if you use CRPM, this is not the finance course, so don't worry if you find this problematic, but I want you to understand sort of how you calculate the discount rate. So if you use CRPM, you use a formula like this. So in order to get the discount rate, you take the risk-free rate plus a beta value and the expected return of a market portfolio. Okay. And I mean, it's quite standard to actually get the expected return, for example, of a market portfolio. It might change over time, but it's quite stable. The risk-free rate is not that stable. What is the risk-free rate? So it's the lowest risk that you can take by investing in something and get something in return. So what do you usually use to get the risk-free rate? What's the lowest risk that you can take as an investor? Yeah?
Then money to the government.
Yeah. I think you're right, but it can be more specific.
If you expect capital A plus.
Yeah.
So, or,
Yeah. You're right. But what we are usually looking at is a state bond, as you're saying, but a 10-year-old state bond. Okay. And I think in US it's 1.52 or something. So then you get the discount rate, and then you get the value. And if you use CRP, what is the value? What do you get by using this formula? Or what do you get by using back, inside of CFP? I mean, we want to calculate the firm value, okay? What is the value? Yeah.
The money this company makes more than the average.
Yeah. You want to try again?
It's like the future.
It's not future because
Yeah,
So-
they are present value.
it's the present value. So cash flow, next year's cash flow of that, blah 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 blah. And that is the reason for why we said that okay, we want to access sources of profits available for the firm, and by maximizing profits, what do we mean by that? Well, it's not for, in this case, Facebook year 2030. It's about the long-term game to actually trying to maximize the profits for every year. And if we do that, and if the cash flows are very high over the years, I mean, obviously, the present firm value will go up. Because, I mean, all these, I missed something, but all these things are squared by next year and next year after that and so on. But of course, I mean, the higher cash flow and the higher profits we are making, the higher the present value of the firm today will be. So, but my question was, okay, what is this? Because by using VAC and using CRPM, you get different values here. Okay. And it's not rocket science, but if you're using weighted average cost of capital, you are calculating the value of the firm, the firm's equity, and you're calculating the value of the firm's debt. So what D is the enterprise value, okay? The value of the whole firm. But if we want to understand, which Facebook wanted to understand in this case, they use CAPM, okay? Then you only discount, and you do not care about the debt. What you get by putting in CAPM in terms of the value here is the shareholders' value, okay? The shareholders' value and the enterprise value by using VAC is not the same thing. But the way there is the same. Try to increase the future profits of the firm. The only thing that you do, you can use both methods. If you use CRPM, you get the shareholders' value. And what Facebook did and what you have to do is that you only divide it by the number of shares, and then you get the share price. If you use VAC, you get the enterprise value. If you want to have the shareholders' value, you just need to deduct the market value of the debt. So it's the same way here, but it's different values. And this is the formula that all analysts are using. So if you are interested in stocks, for example, and let's say Carnegie says that, okay, we have a buy on years on 130%. I think they are in 95 today. They are using this method to actually calculate values. All of them. Even firms that are interested in their own value and whether they should buy back stocks and so on are using this method. So it's a great method to understand the value. Yeah.
Vary a lot between backing and the rock when you use them because it seems like you can like shift them
It shouldn't do that because I mean, what you're trying to do is a real valuation. But of course, I mean, if you have high debts or low debts, it will be. In the end, I mean, you will get the same results. I mean, the meaning is that you will get the same results by using back or CLP. Because I mean, in the end, you have to make a value on the debts as well. Okay. So you should get the same number, but I understand your question that
Yeah, because I thought that Facebook they calculate the enterprise value, but they calculate the shareholder value.
yeah, that is, yeah. If you would compare these two types of valuation methods, which one do you think is the most valuable in the Facebook case? Yeah.
Discount cash flow.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, of course, Apple and Google are nice to compare, but at the end, they end up that similar to Facebook. So in this case, it makes more sense to
Do you agree, or you have? I think both of them are like sort of. It's a bit tricky, but these multiples, I mean, then you at least get some type of feeling. Here, you at least try to estimate future cash flows in order to get the value, but I mean, it's sort of tricky as well because it's tricky to understand the future cash flows for Facebook in this case. But if you, for example, look at this formula, this big discussion about okay, what's the purpose of firms? Do they try to maximize the value for stakeholders or shareholders? We do not really have to care about that because if we make a lot of future profits and we calculate the firm value, I mean, in the end, I think it's up to the firm to do what they want to do with the profits. And I mean, if you take a company like Apple, for example, they have huge cash flows, but they don't pay out dividends to shareholders. They're very restricted. So is Facebook, or they're trying to maximize the value for the shareholders? Sort of. I mean, they are maximizing the enterprise value and the shareholders' equity, but they are not paying out any dividends. But I think that for this course, it doesn't matter that much actually about okay, do we have the perspective of the stakeholders or the shareholders, and it's actually trying to bring in all type of stakeholders and trying to maximize the value for everyone. It's pretty difficult. So, then the question is, well, we have a few minutes. I think that after the break, what we'll do is to try to see, okay, it's quite, I mean, Financial Times said that this is too high price for Facebook. I think they wanted 34 to 38, and I think Financial Times said that it's not worth more than $24. And how do you know that? I mean, what Financial Times did that was that they calculated the future cash flows and they tried to estimate that by saying that okay, it seems that Facebook's earnings are going down. It seems that even if they get more users, the cost base on not decreasing, so it doesn't seem to be that scalable anymore. And the reason for that is what you said, that okay, it seems that the world's richest people are already on Facebook, and they thought that okay, future customers will not become that profitable. So they try to estimate the future cash flow by using like an assumption where the profit margin was. But let's discuss how we can use financial analysis to better understand future cash flow of Facebook.